Hey everyone, Logan Hertz here. We're going to keep responding to comments on our Hazeltine LLC YouTube channel. So this comment comes from Jane Marie 5450 says, "You hit the nail on the head, Logan. I don't know how many women are diagnosed as infertile because they have difficulty conceiving. I said, it's a billing code. While some health situations cannot be resolved, there are many others that have easy fixes if the doctor takes the time to solve the problem. And voila, babies." Thank you for your comment, Jane Marie. I appreciate it. This is on my Attack of the Medical Cartel video. I was talking about my personal experience trying to navigate my own personal health situation, which continues to be a daily struggle for me, continues to be a source of a lot of suffering. That is my cross, continues to be my cross, has been for years. So I talked somewhat about that, but I also talked about, again, navigating this whole system becomes a challenge in itself, financing everything that's going on. And this is an area where I'm developing partnerships through my partnership with Brad Owens of Healthcare Unlocked, through my partnership with Crowd Health and others, that if you have challenges with medical issues, come and talk to us. We can actually help you. I don't know that we can help fix your medical problems, but we can help you with the financing of it and helping you to navigate the system and maybe even get better care. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, not a qualified medical professional, but in terms of how to navigate the system, we can help you a lot with that. So thanks for the positive comment, Jane Marie. I agree. It's doctors are not financially incentivized to solve your problems. That's the problem, right? They get paid by the insurance company and they get paid regardless of the outcome. It doesn't matter if they fix your problem or not. They have no incentive to. What they really want to do is just manage symptoms so they can keep you coming back. What they really want is for you to be dependent upon the system. The ideal patient for the medical cartel is someone who has a medical condition, a lifelong medical condition that requires management. And why would they ever want to solve the problem, right? It's not a problem for them. They're making money. Cui bono? That's always the question asked. Cui bono? Who benefits? The age old question of Seneca: who benefits? So ask yourself, does the medical cartel benefit from healthy people? No, they only benefit from sick people or people who have some medical problem. So again, the ideal patient for them is someone who's able to who's still functional, is able to live a relatively normal life, but requires some kind of ongoing treatment from them, whether it be drugs or what have you. That's what they want. They never even attempt to discover what is the root cause. They do no root cause analysis or fix it. The comparison I made in a previous video was, you take your car to a mechanic and pay him $1,000 to fix something, and then you go to your car to reclaim it and the car won't start. You're going to go back to that mechanic and say, "Hey, you didn't fix it. And no, I'm not paying you anymore. Fix it." But in the medical system, we don't pay based on results because the insurance company is the one doing the paying. So they pay regardless. It really doesn't matter. So, given my profession, I look at financial incentives. I don't expect the doctors to be Mother Teresa. I don't expect that. I don't expect them to work for free. I don't expect them to have deep concern for me. That's not realistic. So, what I want to do is have people financially incentivized to do the right thing. That's the problem, in my opinion, or at least let me rephrase that. That is a problem that is solvable. The ultimate problem is original sin, the effects of original sin. And we know that problem will not be solved in this life. That is not a solvable problem. So I try to be realistic. And I think this is why, as an example, you look at what I do. When you look at a lot of problems in the financial system, because I think there's a parallel between the medical system and the financial system, a lot of the same problems exist. When you look at the financial system, when you have your standard financial advisor and you're following the standard conventional wisdom, the problem is the customer's financial incentives and the financial incentives of those institutions are not aligned. They are different. When you give your money to a financial advisor and he invests it for you, he is financially incentivized to take as much of your money as possible under management and keep it there forever. That's his incentive. Whereas when you to an alternate strategy like what we do, and you're working with a mutually held insurance company, not a stock company, a mutually held insurance company that's been paying dividends for over 100 years, your financial incentives and their financial incentives are aligned. It's not that those people are a bunch of angels and the alternate financial solutions are a bunch of devils. No, it's just that they're operating under different financial incentive structures. So this was a long-winded answer to Miss Jane Marie, but I just wanted to point out part of the reason why I bring up this medical issue is just because I get a lot of sympathy and I hear a lot of similar stories. And so I think I can help people. I think there are lessons learned when it comes to that. And then I see parallels between what goes on in the medical system and what goes on in the financial system. I would say that from my perspective, and maybe this is just based on my personal experience, I think the medical system is worse because the consequences are so much worse. It's your health. I would rather someone take my money away from me than take my health away from me. I'd rather be perfectly healthy but poor than rich and very unhealthy. But thank you for your comment, Jane Marie. Appreciate the positive comment. I agree with you. Then Jane Marie 5450 comments again and says, I hope you didn't pay that doctor in cash. Yeah. The insurance company paid him, and I'm sure they paid him very well, even though it's not very helpful. I don't know which doctor you're referring to, but there were multiple doctors. What's interesting, I mentioned in another episode I had with DeAndre Clayton, I talked about Stockholm Syndrome. And Stockholm Syndrome is the psychological phenomenon by which someone who has been kidnapped defends his captors. And we all have a tendency to do this. Why? It sounds strange, right? Why would you defend the person who's bullying, manipulating you, etc.? Well, it comes back to ego, right? Because if I admit that someone else is manipulating me or bullying me, I have to admit that person is stronger than me in some way and I am weak in some way. And that is a painful, humiliating admission that some people are not willing to make. Just think about people who are in abusive relationships and they defend the abuser and they say, no, it's not the abuser's fault, it's my fault, which is what the abuser wants, of course, because bullies always blame the victim. Bullies always blame the victim. So the reason why I bring this up is because I think there is a very small percentage of the population. We're not talking about most people, but I come across them where when I present to them this alternate financial strategy, they get so angry. And I spent a long time trying to figure out why are they so angry? If you don't agree with this financial strategy, that's fine. Why are you getting so upset over it? It's not religion. It's not religion or politics. We're just talking about a financial strategy. And if you disagree, okay. But I came to the conclusion that I think the reason why they get so angry is because it's Stockholm Syndrome. Because when I say the infinite banking concept enables you to gain control of your capital, I am implying that you don't have control over your capital today and that there are financial institutions who may be taking advantage of you. Now, for me, when I say gain control over your capital, that's a 100% positive thing. Why would you not want to do that? But for someone who has an ego problem, they only hear the negative side of it. They hear, "Oh, you're telling me I don't have control over my capital. How dare you? How dare you suggest that my financial life is anything less than perfect?" And so then they defend the conventional wisdom in these conventional vehicles that the financial institutions give them. So the very financial institutions that are taking advantage of them, they rush to their defense and they get super angry, right? So you know when someone gets super angry, you say something and someone gets super angry. You know the problem is not with you and what you said. The problem is with the person who gets super angry. Because obviously I'm not being rude. I'm just presenting an alternate financial strategy. So that was, I know, a long-winded way, but what I'm coming to is this. I see the same thing in the medical system. I've met multiple people now this is also a very small percentage of the population because I think most people agree with have had negative experience with the medical system and kind of agree with a lot of what I said. But there are some people who will defend the medical cartel who've been patients who say, no, I've been treated well and it's been great and I'm super happy with the care I get. And certainly that's true in some cases, no question about it. Obviously, I'm trying not to paint with a broad brush. There are great doctors out there. There are doctors who work outside of the insurance system, and there are doctors who also do their best of working inside the system but helping you. So I've come across some good doctors as well. I don't pretend like it's all bad. And technologically, there's been a lot of progress. So I don't want to paint with too broad a brush. The problem really is the financial incentives and how they're set up. But Some of these people who have told me, "Oh, no, I've been treated really well, it's been great." I've actually witnessed how they have not been treated well. And what's universally true of those people is that they never get better, right? They keep going back and getting more treatment, quote unquote, and they never really seem to get better. If anything, maybe they get slowly worse, right? So it's like, hey, what do you mean you're getting treated well? They're not fixing your problem. And I think, again, it's Stockholm Syndrome. They don't want to admit that they're simply being taken advantage of by the medical system. They are being exploited, but their ego blocks them from seeing that. And so they instead defend the very people who are abusing and manipulating them. I'm honest enough and humble enough to admit that I absolutely 100% have been taken advantage of by the medical system. They're strong and I'm weak. And when I go in and try and navigate the system, I'm in a position of weakness, and these bureaucrats are in a position of strength. And I have to do my very best to try and get the care that I need and try and figure things out. And it's a very, very lonely, powerless feeling that you're at the mercy of these people who don't have your best interests at heart. And the consequences for me can be severe. I could quite literally die if I don't get the care that I need. And it's a very humbling position to be in. And I hope I'm honest and humble enough to admit that. My ego, I hope, doesn't come in and block it and have me defend these medical so called professionals who are taking advantage of me, bullying me, lecturing me, and manipulating me. And at best, many of them are just bureaucrats. They don't really care about me. They just put a check in the box and they have no interest in whether I actually get better or not. Yeah, that was a very long-winded response, but I guess that means, Jane Marie, you made a good comment because it led to a ramble by me that I think is somewhat interesting. Stockholm Syndrome is something I see more and more of the more I pay attention. I see a lot of parallels between what goes on in the medical system and what goes on in the financial system. And the good news is this: I think I can help you. I have learned a lot from my experiences. There are alternatives out there. There are solutions out there. There are ways to escape the medical cartel. There are ways to escape the banking cartel, and your life can become a lot better. And I can help you with that. So come talk to me about your healthcare needs. I'm not a doctor, but I can help you with navigating health insurance, health sharing, make you aware of alternatives like crowd health that you might not even have been aware of. Same thing on the financial side, right? So come talk to me and have a bit of humility. The more humility you have, the easier it's going to be for you to find the truth and find the right solution for you. The more your ego intervenes, the harder it's going to be for you to receive good advice and find the right information. And we all have egos, let's be honest. Unless you're a saint, we all have some ego, and that's something we all have to manage. But thank you for your comments, Jane Marie. I appreciate it. I'll probably do maybe a follow. I need to do some follow ups on that episode, but it's a painful topic for me. Talking about my personal health journey, it's not something I enjoy speaking about. It makes me feel like a bit of a narcissist when I'm just talking about myself and my own experiences. But the reason why I do it is because I think it resonates with people, and I hope that it gives some hope to people who are in similar circumstances. Because I know there are a lot of people out there in similar circumstances where they are feeling very lonely and trying to navigate the medical cartel, and they're dealing with chronic health issues. Maybe some of them have been diagnosed. Maybe they're like me, where it remains very mysterious. And I want you to know that there are other people out there suffering the same thing. And there can be good that comes out of it. So anyway, thanks for your comment, Jane Marie. I appreciate it. Jesse Joseph, 1984, says 100% agreed. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. Jesse Joseph, I believe, has gotten a first lien HELOC. He's doing velocity banking. Good for you. He's commenting on my video on why our first lien HELOC is so unknown. This is where we were responding to some people in the comments who asked why we wouldn't share specific information. And we went through all the reasons why we don't, why it would be irresponsible, why it's not a good idea, and why if you want the more specific information, you can just schedule a consultation, no problem, because those specific details are specific. They're not relevant for a general audience. So we're talking to a general audience, obviously, when we're on YouTube. So we don't want to confuse and mislead people. So if you want more specific answers to your specific questions, no problem. Schedule a consultation. Happy to answer all your questions. Thanks for your comment, Jesse. Let me know how things are going with your first lien HELOC. Okay, Log me not. I'm sorry. Log me not 1377. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. I don't know if that's French. Log me no. I'm sorry. I'm just going to call you Lognimot, but I know that's probably not how that screen name is meant to be pronounced, but I apologize. This person says, I love the deconstructionist style teaching and explanation of financial and investment teachings for the content. It's always good to study and articulate the flaws and misleading information within seemingly trusted systems. Very necessary information and helps restructure, reframe the mindset about money and its use. Well, thank you so much for the comment and congratulations on using the word deconstructionist. Deconstructionist. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much. This was on The Psychology of Money Part 1 with DeAndre Clayton. And man, we've only done one video, but there's so many more videos we need to do on the psychology of money because the further I go in this business, the more I see it's all about psychology. The difference between the person who succeeds with money and the person who doesn't is not because the person who's successful has a better spreadsheet with better numbers. No, it's not about the numbers. It's about human psychology. Financial fitness is very similar to physical fitness. There's a huge psychological dimension to it. So thank you for your comment. And then we had a bit of an exchange, and this person said again, seeing retirement accounts and bank deposits as a form of locking your money away instead of keeping it fluid for use. I asked her, what did you find particularly revealing? And she responded, seeing retirement accounts and bank deposits as a form of locking your money away instead of keeping it fluid for use. Also, the realization that some financial advisors are essentially providing misleading investment strategies that will make you poor instead of rich. Also, the discussion of flaws in the predictability of the stock market trends. Just so much information that caused me to rethink and reframe how I've received and processed financial advice. Thank you so much for your comment. I'm glad to know that these things were helpful for you. Yeah, I use that phrase a lot, locking your money up in jail. One of the things that Glenn Yaney said, who's a very successful real estate investor, and I'm sure it's not original with him, he says one of the defining characteristics of wealthy people is they have access to capital when they need it or when they want it. That's one of sort of the definitions of being wealthy, meaning you have access to capital when you need it or when you want it. And when you put your money in, as an example, a retirement account, you're giving up access to your money. You do not have access to that money. I'm not saying a retirement account is necessarily good or bad. I'm just saying that's a trade off that most people I don't think put enough weight on. They just dismiss it like, yeah, it's a retirement account. I'm not going to touch it for decades. Well, that's a pretty big drawback when you think about it. The fact that you will not have access to that capital for a long period of time, that's a fairly big drawback. Wealthy people typically don't take that trade off because they're typically very good with their money and they know if they have access to it, they can do so much more with it. So if they don't have access to it, the opportunity cost is so large, it's just not worth it. Right. So the further I get in this business, the more I value liquidity, staying liquid. It's not about trying to squeeze out the highest possible return. Whether you get an 8 or a 10% return on your money in the market is not going to make a massive difference in your financial life. Staying liquid through good times and bad will help you a lot. It'll help you to take advantage of opportunities in the down markets when everyone else is panicking and holding on to their capital. You'll have access to capital when nobody else does. You'll have access to capital when capital is very dear. So thanks so much for your comment. I appreciate it. I'm glad this was helpful to you. Andrew Hansen, BHC, says, it's so common on YouTube to hear this argument whether the policy should be used to invest only or buy cars and finance the major purchases in your life. The answer should be both. I think we're asking the wrong question. The question should not be what is the best use of a policy and policy loan. Of course, the best use of our money in general is to buy assets that produce more money. That said, we would never buy houses or cars or food, etc. However, we need to spend money on the items to live. The question should be, what is the best way to purchase a car? What is the best way to purchase a home? What is the best way to set aside money for investing? If those are the proper questions, the answer would logically be our major purchase money and our investment war chest should go into a policy first and then deployed when appropriate. Thank you for your comment, Andrew. I agree with you, and I really don't have much to add to what you said. You're 100% correct. I agree with you. I think people who obsess over what's the best use of a policy loan totally are missing the point and not understanding the strategy. What should I use my policy for? Whatever you were going to do anyway. You're going to spend money, you're going to invest money. The question is, how are you financing all of that? So, yeah, it's totally up to you. It's totally up to you. So, this is meant to be your warehouse of wealth. How you use it is up to you. So, the question is, as long as you're going to make these purchases and investments, what's the most efficient way to finance those purchases and investments? And that's the problem. Most people don't think about financing. They might spend some time developing an investment strategy, but they have no financing strategy. And financing is half of every transaction. So usually they're just paying cash and they don't really think much beyond that. If they're smart, maybe they'll use a rewards earning credit card, which gives them a benefit, but not a dramatic benefit over time. So why not be the bank that finances all of those purchases and all of those investments? Do both, right? So yeah, I agree. It's asking the wrong question and it shows that they fundamentally don't understand the strategy. It's missing the point. So as always, we get caught up in details that are secondary while missing the strategy. These sorts of questions indicate they're missing the strategy. Thanks so much for your comment. And then Miami Dre says, the Roth is the best storage facility. I think people forget that you'll receive a 1099 with a Roth, so the government can change its mind on its non taxable status. I thought you could only buy real estate instead of a self directed IRA, not a Roth. Thanks for your comment, Miami Dre. This is DeAndre Clayton. So when he says the Roth is the best storage facility, he's not saying that because he agrees with it. He's repeating what someone else said in the comments that I was responding to. Yeah. And we're both questioning what the Roth is the best storage facility for your money. I don't know about that. And I also didn't know what you pointed out here. This is very interesting that you get a 1099 for your assets in a Roth. So that's interesting. And I think what he's pointing out is that indicates that it's easy for the government to change its mind in the future and say, we're going to go ahead and tax these Roths. I wouldn't put it past the government. I'm not saying that will happen, but I wouldn't put it past the federal government to do anything like that. Haven't governments broken their promises before? And then he said, I thought you could only buy real estate inside of a self directed IRA, not a Roth. Yeah, that may be very accurate. I'm not sure. I haven't verified that, but I would trust the opinion of DeAndre Clayton over somebody else in the comment section. I think people assume that you can buy whatever you want inside of a retirement account. We're not necessarily. Depends on a lot of different things. Oftentimes you're restricted in many different ways, not only on not only is your access to the money restricted, but what you can invest in is also restricted. Thanks for your comment, DeAndre. Appreciate it. Okay. Now, in search of efficiency comments, great content as always. As someone who likes doing their own research and being very hands on in these types of matters, I can absolutely confirm that for both infinite banking and velocity banking, you will likely hit the wall of limitation very early on if trying to implement on your own. And a competent, qualified professional will illuminate nuances and elements that will be virtually impossible to uncover on one's own. I have just started the first steps of working with an IBC expert, and this became immediately clear to me, so I thought I would corroborate Logan's insight. Thank you for your comment. Couldn't agree more. If you're going to do these strategies, it's worth scheduling time with a professional, even if that means paying some money, which usually it doesn't, by the way. Usually what happens is you work with an infinite banking expert like me, and I don't charge you for my time because I make money on the commission when we put the policy in force. But it depends on the relationship, depends on a number of things. Um, Many people who are good in this field do charge up front, and that's just to filter out bad prospects and people who are not serious. But if you understand the tremendous benefits that you're getting from these strategies, it shouldn't be a big deal to spend some time and money to make sure you set it up right, because the difference between doing it well and doing it poorly can be dramatic. And there are pitfalls that could happen where, as an example, if your policy is not set up properly, it could become taxable. And that might not happen until 5, 10, 20 years into the policy, where your policy becomes a MEC, what they call a MEC, a modified endowment contract, because the agent didn't set up the policy properly. And now your policy is not only taxable going forward, it's retroactive. And all the gains in your policy are now taxable because that agent didn't set it up properly. And so when the policy first went into force, it was not a MEC, it was not taxable. But because the policy structure wasn't sound enough, it eventually becomes a MEC, it becomes taxable. That's just one example of things that can happen. And the reason why I point this out is making mistakes with infinite banking and velocity banking, but infinite banking in particular, they don't get uncovered until much later where it's too late to do anything and the negative consequence can be dramatic. It's like not getting the oil changed in your car if you didn't know how to do that, right? It'll take a while, but eventually your car could be completely ruined because you didn't do the proper maintenance. Things like that. So maybe a poor analogy, but yeah. So yeah, work with a competent professional and the 80/20 rule applies. So yeah, you got to search to find a good one. Not all of them are good. That's for sure. Thanks so much for your comment. And then he says, "Yes, I'm in Canada, so I was able to find someone that is a good fit for me. Otherwise, I would be knocking on your door. Keep up the great education, and I hope people can remain open-minded throughout this journey." Thanks for your comment. I do have some international, actually a growing number of international audience members. So this guy is in Canada. You absolutely can do infinite banking in Canada. There are good mutually held insurance companies in Canada and good infinite banking specialist agents in Canada that can help you. You can even, if you're a Canadian citizen, you can even get policies with some American carriers depending on your circumstances. I have Canadian citizens as clients, and we were able to take out policies with American insurance companies. It just, again, it depends on your situation. But thanks for your comment. Glad to hear you started your journey. Good luck with it. Keep going. Let us know how it's going. Okay. In Search of Efficiency also comments on another video and says, reusing credit cards. There's also the time value of money, which plays into the velocity banking concept, i.e., leveraging the grace period to delay the date your cash leaves your system, which perhaps was the underlying message of initial comment. Thanks for your comment. I agree with you. So it's this is a tangential point, which I might do some content on, but there are people who do a ton of content on this. That's the benefit of using credit cards. Using credit cards intelligently can get you some pretty large benefits. There's, of course, cashback rewards, there's travel points, but there's so many other things that people are not aware of. And if you're willing to do a little more work and organization, you can really get some pretty solid benefits out of credit cards that can make a difference in your financial life. What he's talking about here is just the float, meaning that if I pay cash today, then money leaves my personal economy today. If I put it on a credit card, money doesn't leave my personal economy until 30, 45, maybe even 60 days later when I actually make that payment on my credit card. And you could take advantage of that float, that grace period, as he calls it, especially if you're doing velocity banking. So if you're using a first lien HELOC, that means your income can stay in your first lien HELOC for a longer period of time, which pushes down your average daily principal balance, reduces the interest costs you have on your house. That's just one example of how it can help you. But yeah, and you can even more if you have an introductory 0% rate. You sign up for a new credit card. Oftentimes, they'll give you an intro 0% APR for the first 12 months. For the first 12 months, you're just making the minimum payment, and then you pay that full balance off just before the 0% APR expires. You just had a tremendous amount of benefit. And then he says, and we go back and forth, and in Search of Efficiency says, maybe we're talking about two different things, but can you please clarify why it is negligible? Okay, I guess I have to read my response here, so let me back up. So I said, yes, it does increase your float, which can increase your financial efficiency. In my opinion, though, the effect of that is negligible over time. The only exception would be when you ride 0% intro APRs for multiple months. And then he replies and says, maybe we're talking about two different things, but can you please clarify why it is negligible? My understanding is that in velocity banking, if you have your income flowing through your HELOC, but you delay your outflows related to any expenses you can charge to your credit, then those small increments of having a lower balance for less days can reduce interest payments and add up over time. So thanks for your comment. Yes, you're 100% correct. And I don't want to go deep into this topic right now, but you're absolutely 100% correct. But if you really think about it, that really only benefits you for the first statement cycle. After that, it makes no difference. But you're right. Again, I agree with you that the general point is correct, which is that you now have a float. So instead of paying money today, I'm paying money 30 days from now, which means my income can sit in my HELOC for 30 days, which pushes down my average daily principal balance. But that's a bit of inside baseball and velocity banking that we can talk about further. But your point is correct. It's just a question of how much does that really benefit you over the long run is the question. But thanks so much for commenting. Greatly appreciate it. We will respond to more comments as we have time.